USA Today's For the Win came out with their weekly quarterback rankings after week 3. Now, for these power rankings, the list is based entirely on 2016 results. They might surprise you just a little bit. So here's how it is, folks. Take a look at number 1. It's Matty Ice from Hotlanta, followed by the man who just signed a contract extension. That would be one Drew Brees. Rounding out the top 3, it's Phillip Rivers. Eli Manning comes in at number 4. Cam Newton is 5. Max, I want to start with you here. Can you take this over, please? Who are your top 5 quarterbacks this season at the moment, my friend?
First of all, it pains me to say I can't put Eli Manning there. Leverage matters, and though he's played very well this year, you throw the pick that loses the game to go 2-1 in the division. You lose that game in the division, and now you're going to Minnesota. I can't put you in the top 5. Cam Newton hasn't been great this year, though he's faced some great defenses. Based on what they have and how they've done, you want me to start at 5 or 1? Want me to go 5 to 1 or 1 to 5?
What you want to do?
5 to 1.
Start at 5.
Honorable mention.
Tell him what to do.
Honorable mention, Matthew Stafford, but I can't put him in the top 5. Okay. Phillip Rivers at 5 with no Keenan Allen. He's still balling. 4, Carson Wentz. I don't care about the QBR and all that, although it's solid. You can see this guy can play.
Oh, no.
Andrew Luck, 3. He's been doing it by himself. Yeah, that's right. 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, over 300 yards a game by himself. No offensive line, no running back, not elite receivers. He's doing it, no defense.
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers, if you take the Minnesota game out, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, 12 for 18 with 4 TDs and no interceptions on 3rd down, almost 10 yards, 9.1 yards an attempt. And finally, number 1, Matt Ryan has been great this year. Matt Ryan's been great this year, just outplayed Drew Brees at New Orleans and so far has been the best quarterback in the league in 2016.
You know what? It's interesting that you say that. I get where you're coming from, but I got a different list. I'm going to start from 1 to 5. Number 1 on my list would happen to be Matt Ryan.
Okay.
Who's the player of the month right now.
You agree there?
I just think that he's been balling, and he has shown up. He's completing about 70% of his passes. He's making things happen. I give him credit for that. I'm going to go with Carson Wentz at number 2. I'm going to go with him at number 2 because he doesn't have a single interception. All right, he's thrown 5 touchdowns passes. He's completed nearly 65% of his passes, and the Eagles are undefeated. And when you consider what we saw from them last year, I got to give credit where credit is due. I got to give love to Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck's got over 900 yards passing. He's only got 2 interceptions on the season, about 7 touchdowns, if I remember correctly. You know, he's completing over 60% of his passes. He's reemerged after the bevy of injuries he suffered from. You know I can't have a top 5 without the bad man that he is, Aaron Rodgers, because he's Aaron Rodgers. Now, even though he hasn't been quote-unquote stellar, I got to look at him and what I'm seeing from him this year thus far, completing 65% of his passes. I'm sorry, 58% of his passes. Not that great, not that impressive, but he has thrown 7 touchdowns, just 1 interception. Tells me that guys ain't getting hope and that he's not having much help, but they're still 2-1 and on the come-up. He's Aaron Rodgers. Momentum, something to say about that. And last on my top 5, it ain't Dak Prescott, even though he's completed 66.7% of his passes, even though the Dallas Cowboys are 2-1. All of those things being considered, I got to give some love to Sam Bradford for Minnesota. Sam Bradford arrives in Minnesota. They're undefeated in the 2 games that he has played. And when you look at him and what he's bringing to the table right now, I got to give love where love is due. The Minnesota Vikings might be the team to beat in the NFC, and he's showing him connecting with Stephon Diggs. They've become a deep threat weapon. Obviously, not having Adrian Peterson, they still managed to go in Carolina and beat them. I just look at it and I say, you know what? I can't sneeze on Sam Bradford. I got to give some love to him.
But
I give it to Dak Prescott.
What I think happens when these quarterback lists at this point in the season is they're either on teams with really good defenses because they're winning, and so they're undefeated, like Sam Bradford, who deserves praise. I wouldn't put him in the top 5, but he, you know, who are the 2 elite defenses? Which teams are the 2 elite defenses in the league? The Broncos and obviously Minnesota. And by the way, you actually have to say Philadelphia too at this point after what they just did to the Steelers. So those kind of quarterbacks we like because they win. And then quarterbacks with really bad defenses and really bad offensive lines who ball anyway get a lot of respect, like Andrew Luck. Like at times Aaron Rodgers this year, what Green Bay hasn't played up to their potential. I mean, that's the only stain against Aaron Rodgers, that Minnesota game.
Well, let's look at it this way. Got you. But let's go back to Sam Bradford. In 2 games, he's 2-0. He's completed 67.8% of his passes for nearly 500 yards. And he has got 3 touchdowns, not a single turnover. And the games were against Green Bay, in Carolina.
Yep.
Can't ignore that.
Yeah, I mean, so far on that team, I think Mike Zimmer is the MVP, but.
So the only real difference that you guys had was the Sam Bradford Rivers, and then your orders were a little moved around.
I'm
but
not
completely different.
We have four of
than
the same
list.
5 guys. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rivers is nice. It's just that I'm never down on Rivers. I'm down on San Diego.
Yep.
I think they find a way to get in their own way, and I don't think they're reliable when it counts. I think they will. They're Dallas Cowboys West. They will find a way to let you down.
I'm surprised though you didn't have Dak. He was low on the list, but where would you have put him?
Probably 7 or 8
So he'd
so
still
far
be
this year.
in the top 10.
Yeah, I'd put him in the top. I think his play necessitates you have to put him there. And part of this, it's unfair. It's just kind of eyeball test. I watched Carson Wentz and I think it's the Steelers game. The eyeball test. It's the Steelers game. He did that to the Steelers. So that, Dak doesn't have a performance like that against a team like that yet.
Okay.
Stephen A., where would you have him? Would Dak be in your top 10?
6.
6. All right.
At number 6.
Stafford, I'd have Stafford 6. If you
I
don't
would
know-
not have Stafford ahead of Dak Prescott.
Oh, Stafford has played extremely well this
I guess I'm biased against him. I need to see more. This week.
I
What
need
are
to
y'all
talk
gonna
to you.
lose this week?
So here is my lock. I am going with the Packers. They're going to redeem themselves at home against Detroit. And I will remain standing at the end of this.
Well, you may. I don't know. We'll see. I know I'll remain
Steelers
standing.
over the Eagles?
That's right. The
That's
Eagles.
so risky.
The Eagles are mirage. Yes, they've been playing much better defense. I think Carson Wentz is the real deal. He's still a rookie. The Steelers' defense is much improved, and there's no way the Eagles are going to stop that Steelers offense. Steelers are going to beat them on the road.
Well, like Max likes to say, kids, that's a wrap. It's over, and
What
it's
trenchant
only
analysis
week 4.
by me.
You are eliminated.
Well, at least it was a nail biter. At least it was a close game. No?
I'm glad America knows who to stick with. If you're making picks, come to this girl. I got you covered.
Whatever.
Can we redo the contest? Do you guys want to
Yeah,
play again
start
so I
over
can beat you
again.
again? It's only week 4. This is embarrassing.
I think you
Everybody
should
knows
start over again.
You don't know the
Everybody
half
knows
of
what
it.
did it to me. The Los Angeles Rams beat
Of course
Seattle.
they did.
Right?
I try
I mean,
to warn
come
these
on.
people.
Come
Yeah.
on. After losing 28-0 the first go round. I mean, what do you want me to
I'll
say?
let you guys
here's
back
the
in.
deal.
Let's let
It's
them back in the pool and do it again.
That's
you
even
should.
worse.
And here's the deal. Like the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season are really an extension of the preseason anyhow. So you know what? Your expert analysis didn't quite work out because you didn't have enough information yet.
Too small sample size.
Right.
Oh,
so now
but I
it's
was
time.
in- but I was
You know
able
what the
to get
worst
it
part
done.
of that is? Molly warns me off
Yeah.
the pick.
I did. I tried
She's
to
like,
help
I'm
him.
trying
I look
to
out
help
for
you.
him. Let me just leave it with this.
Yes.
Who picked the Broncos to win the Super Bowl? This was before your time. Who picked the Cavs? Okay, let's move on.
Wow.
We have another one to pick. We will leave it there. We've got Thursday Night Football, gentlemen. Mark, always great to see you here.
This is an outrage.
Featuring the Dolphins and the Bengals. You spent some time in Miami as you star on the show Ballers.
Yes.
The Bengals are struggling this season at just 1-2 so far, with their only win coming in Week 1 over the Jets, a 1-point victory. Cincinnati head coach Marvin Lewis coming under a little scrutiny over the past few seasons, because he struggled a little bit there, as we know, getting into the first round of the playoffs each of the last 5 seasons, not making it further. Mark, I want to start with you. If the Bengals lose tonight, could this affect the future of Marvin Lewis in Cincy?
Well, I mean, I always think you're always coaching for your job, and obviously they've had a great run there, albeit not being able to get out of the playoffs. But yeah, I think certainly as you start compiling kind of the body of work, and it's been very good, but again, it's winning the big games. It's winning the big moments. It's winning in the playoffs. Last week, they had a huge game against the defending world champions at home as they opened up their home opener, and they can't get that done. So Thursday night, primetime game against the Miami Dolphins, a team at home that you should be able to beat. Yeah, I think if you don't win this game, at least, the very least, the rumblings will start. You'll start hearing all those people talking, is Marvin Lewis the right guy? I think he is, but still, the proof is in the pudding. You've got to win these games.
Stop right
He hasn't
there.
been able to do it.
Stop right there. Mark Schlereth, I need you to explain to me, why do you think Marvin Lewis is the right guy for the job when he has been on the job for 12 complete seasons and has not won one single playoff game?
Yeah.
I need an explanation.
Well, I mean, I think their teams have competed well. I think they've played well up until those playoff games. It comes down to he hasn't been able to get his team to play at the level they need to play at in those games. So you know what? I mean, if you want to...
Ain't that what a head coach supposed to do?
Yeah, that is what a head coach is supposed to do. You're 100% right. And that's why the talk will start. That's why the scrutiny will start. I don't think there's any question that he will be scrutinized. He'll be looked at. And if it doesn't happen again this year, but we've been waiting for 6-7 years. So they seem to be in Cincinnati to be okay with that.
Look,
maybe that's the goal.
I hate to say it, but I think it does fall on Marvin Lewis, and I think it will affect his future tonight. First, let me say, you got a guy like Schottenheimer, and in every era, you seem to have a head coach like, they just don't do well in the playoffs. But with Schottenheimer, I never got the feeling that he was a bad coach in the playoffs or his teams weren't prepared. I thought he got unlucky a lot of the time. It's like a coin flip, some close games. But I don't get that feeling with Marvin Lewis. I have to admit, I feel like the team is fundamentally different once they enter the playoffs and during the regular season. I was really interested in seeing them play in the playoffs last year because I felt like Andy Dalton in particular had turned a corner, not only playing at a very high level, maybe the highest level he ever played on in the regular season, but I started noticing primetime games, even if it was a Thursday night game, he would tick up instead of down. Fourth quarters, he would tick up instead of down. What is this going to look like in the play? And then he gets hurt. It just may not be like meant to be with Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati. And I think if you lose to a team you're supposed to win against at home, to go 1-3 in a division where, you just might not make the playoffs, period. Right. That would be the excuse that they need to move on from Marvin Lewis. Look, now they didn't even make the playoffs. We're going in the wrong direction. And at that point, you have the moment you need to say, okay, the peg you need to say, okay, time for a change at the head coach.
The history would say in the playoffs, in the big kind of primetime games, that's where there has been a lack of production with a Marvin Lewis coached football team in Cincinnati. And again, I could make a compelling argument over the last few years. Now, they lost a lot of guys to free agency. They've lost some guys along the way. But over the last few years, I would make a very compelling argument that they're the most talented team in football, both offensively and defensively. And you still can't find a way to get it done. Now, last year, obviously, you lose your quarterback. That makes it very tough on you. But I have to see them perform in prime time and have one of those dominant performances. And if this happens again, or if, like you said, they don't go to the playoffs, yeah, I think the writing is on the wall.
Let me say this. I think Cincinnati should win this game tonight. They're at home. You got Jeremy Hill to run the football. This is the 31st ranked team against the run, the Miami Dolphins. You can run on them. They're giving up over 4.5 yards a carry or something like that. It's just embarrassing right now what their run defense looks like. And Ndamukong Suh looked awful in the first 3 games last year. This year, he's considerably better in terms of putting his hands on the quarterback, tackles, et cetera, et cetera. But I have some serious questions about this offense. Do you know their leading rusher on the Miami Dolphins has 54 yards rushing? You know who that leader rusher is? Ryan Tannehill. You got to be kidding me. You really got to be kidding me. I'm like,
who's their leading passer?
Again,
It might not be Tannehill.
You're wrong for that.
Supposedly it's him. He's got 4 interceptions already. He's been sacked 6 times in 3 games. Not awful, but you got to protect him a little bit more. But I'm looking at a passing game. You got Jarvis Landry. You got Devontae Parker. You got Kenny Stills. These guys can catch the football for you. You can't run and you can't defend the run. And if you can't do
defend the pass either.
If you can't do those two things, then you should not be able to beat Cincinnati on the road. Cincinnati loses tonight's game. It's not going to make much of a difference to me because I think Marvin Lewis has been in the playoffs 5 consecutive years. I think that it could potentially be in jeopardy. But I have had a hard time figuring out why he has kept his job this long, because progress is what life is supposed to be all about. And that has not been the case with the Marvin Lewis era in recent memory. And I think he's been given too many passes, and he should have been. I'm not saying he can't coach. I'm saying he don't need to coach there. At some point in time, you've been in one destination for but so long, and you continue to disappoint year after year after year. The time for change has arrived.
A.J. Green has a big game tonight.
You're calling that?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, if you ever want to do
Is that kind of like Philadelphia can't shut down the offense of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
you got him.
Touche, Mark Schlereth.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Hey, Mark, if you ever want to do an Eliminator Challenge next year, just let me know, because I'd like some real competition. Maybe we could keep going.
That'd be great. We could probably play beyond 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'd love it.
That'd be great.
She sits up there and she smiles and she listens to us and it goes like this. Well, I'm going to go the other way. Luck's up, right, and now she's a prophet.
The worst part for me is also like,
you imitated me.
or another bad part. They're all worst parts. We had the same picks the first 2 weeks, and the first time we deviated,
and then you fell off. Stick
got
with
crushed.
me. I'm good karma, kid. Coming up next.